I had never felt like visceral attraction to someone before. Of course, I thought my only options were guys. So I just thought, again, I was coming from the church. I thought, wow, must be like really pure and holy because nothing tempts me until she walked in the room.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Made It Out. Today I am here with the artist and icon that we all know and love, Alyson Stoner. And I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but they are also the CEO of a wellness platform and community, Movement Genius. And one of the practical tools available through Movement Genius is a 7-step guide to deepening your mind and body connection. And I absolutely love it because it just so correlates with my queer experience of being disconnected from my body and then coming out and everything coming back online. So I'm so honored and so grateful that I get to have this conversation today and be able to share it all with you. And make sure you stay tuned till the end of the episode to find out about the very generous gift that Alyson and Movement Genius is sharing with the Made It Out listeners. Can we start with you telling us what inspired this work?
So I can share a little bit about my personal health journey, which was after working for many years, my body just kind of shut down. And I had to go through a lot of different types of therapy and like rehabilitation. And I wasn't able to connect to what I was feeling. There's a condition, I don't know if it's called a condition, but the label is alexithymia, and it's the inability to name the sensations in your body, to identify what you're experiencing. And obviously that makes it harder to not only recognize, okay, what does my body need right now? Is it safe? Is it unsafe? But also like, how do I communicate if I myself can't figure out what's going on? So after I went through my healing journey, I just got to observe the way that we separate the mind and body. With mental health, we typically focus neck up, and it's like, try talk therapy, or try, still meditation, or try journaling, and very kind of word focused or mindset oriented. And then you talk about physical health, and it's like neck down, fix your diet, fix your sleep. And all of those are important, but it's missing the way the mind and body influence each other. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that there needed to be some of these mind-body connection tools that help you go deeper into understanding, like, what are the habits that you embody daily? What are the attitudes you have towards taking up space in a room versus making space for everyone else? Or your posture when you're with certain people and you feel relaxed versus your posture when you're with someone who's really intimidating, and all of these different kinds of awareness that help you check in and see, do I want to keep telling this story, or do I want to give myself permission to experience life differently, improve my relationships, quality of life, health and well-being, recognize when I'm burning out before I am completely fatigued. So the intention of the 7 steps is to hopefully help you learn how to build that awareness, understand some tools and techniques that help you ground and understand the story that you're embodying daily, so you can grow and you can heal and you can improve your quality of life.
If you were really shut off to your body and your body had shut down, like you said, how did you come to realize that you had that condition?
Well, I was in therapy for quite some time, and I know that some folks will relate to this. I could logically tell you all kinds of things that were going on around me. But the moment you asked, where in your body do you feel the sadness? Or what do you notice is happening within sensations? I couldn't even tell you that perhaps I was angry and my hands are in fists, but I wouldn't even notice. Or my hands were clammy and nervous and anxious, but I couldn't even tell that was happening. Or my heart was racing, but I didn't have the capacity to feel that. So I would just shut it off, my awareness to it. And so I worked with a therapist who, it's called somatic psychotherapy. So incorporates the body into it, not just talk therapy. And it took me a long time. For some people, it's like you just awaken to it and great, that connection is there, it's strong. For me, it was like this arduous process of slowly peeling back, like all the almost protective shields I had, because I was nervous, like what's underneath what I've been covering or burying? And will it be so overwhelming that I won't be able to like face it and handle it? So very slowly we would like lean into just a little bit of a sensation, learn some simple words around it. Like I had to build a vocabulary. And then over time, like you start to notice these tendencies. Oh, that's right. Every time I go to a meeting with this person, the same 3 things happen in my body. Interesting. What is that about? So yeah, it was a long process, but I knew that others, for many reasons, have experienced similar disconnection. So I wanted to simplify it.
Mm-hmm. In the ebook, you talk about kind of your life and how you were a bit of a nomad. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us about that lifestyle and how it ties into being disconnected from your feelings?
My life has been a pattern of deep bonding and then deep breaks. And it happens in short seasons with people, with projects, with moving. And so I think by the time I was 25, I had moved 25 times. And I was so accustomed to living out of a suitcase or boxes that I became really, solid with not settling anywhere.
Was this because of just work?
With work and family, like first it was a divorce and then we moved to LA and then had to move to other places in LA for work. And it just kept going and going and going. But interestingly, as I moved out, I kept that pattern up even though I didn't really technically need to.
Wow.
So I kept moving every year. And I would find, legitimate reasons to do that. Oh, the lease is up, or like maybe I want to see this other part of town. But it was keeping me locked into the pattern of don't settle down anywhere too long. And deeper underneath that was sort of the assumption that nothing lasts. I can't rely on anyone or anything. This kind of like hyper independent outlook. And to be fair, there's some shades of truth within all of that. Like, yeah, nothing is certain. You don't know what's going to happen. But I had overflexed that muscle and underflexed the muscle. I haven't flexed many muscles recently, actually, but definitely hadn't flexed the muscle of leaning into longstanding connection, deepening intimacy. And I found, do you know Casey Tanner, the queer sex therapist?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Love. So Casey once posted something about this concept called pseudo-vulnerability. And this is my paraphrase, so Casey, sorry if I'm getting this incorrectly. Also, go buy their book. It's called Feel It All. It's out now. But Casey spoke about this capacity for some of us to have a conversation where it seems like it's really deeply connective, but our hearts aren't really open. So I'm using these like juicy words and I'm listening intently to you and we're locked in, but we get to the end of the conversation and you realize, why do I feel like I hardly know anything about Alyson? Why does it feel like that was so present and yet so guarded at the same time? And so I feel like I, as an actor in scenes and then moving a lot, like I had to get to know people really quickly so I would be all in. But like I would go home and I'd be like, yeah, you still don't really know anything about me. So
that's so lonely.
It's very lonely, yes. But I didn't know any other way was possible because this was so unconscious, right? If you asked me at the time, I would have been like, yeah, I have tons of friends. And that's true to a degree. But once you feel the difference where you fully leaned into someone or you've let yourself be held or, you've deepened intimacy in that way with yourself or others, it's like hard to know just how different it could be. So
were you dating at this time?
yes. And I think that's actually the bittersweetness is I could only ever offer people I was dating the portion of myself that I had explored.
Sure.
So I dated at the level of my conscious awareness. And that was, it could have been, I could have had some kinds of maturity in some ways, but also be really underdeveloped in other ways. And so I think a lot of people I did date early on were sort of like, are we just best friends? Are we just business partners? Like, wow, you seem so independent. Like, do you even, some people are like, I would like to know that you need me sometimes. Right. Like, I would like to feel like we're, because I'd be like, I'm here for you if you need anything. No, I'm good. And so I think now things have evolved quite a bit, but that still helps me know whenever I start to notice those things. I'm like, okay, it's familiar. Don't need to judge myself for it, but like, okay, I know where that comes from and I don't have to choose that if I don't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Being so shut off to your body, I'm sure you're shut off to many parts of your identity as well, or understanding who you are. So how did that relate to your queerness?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even understand that I was queer until I was in my 20s, really. Even when I first felt this visceral attraction to a woman, I had so many stories around why that wasn't okay. And it was, evil and sinful from the church congregation that I was a part of at the time. And also it was like, I didn't really think that emotions were trustworthy anyway. It was like, no, focus on practical, logical decision making. I remember the phrase was, feelings are indicators, not decision makers. And I would be like, even though you're attracted to this person, you don't have to act on it. Learn self-discipline. Like it was so, I was so blocked. There was a lot of fear under that because at the core, I just wanted to get it quote unquote right. And I was afraid that that was quote unquote wrong. And so until I unlearned quite a bit and also had these beautiful interactions with queer people where suddenly I was like, wait, you are embodying the most compassionate, loving, accepting, authentic experience of relationship I've ever had. Like, why was I afraid of you? And maybe this part isn't horrible within me. Maybe I can accept it. But yeah, it was like, it kind of all has to happen together. And had I just sat there and tried to like change my mind about it, that wouldn't have changed all of the visceral reactions and fears and responses and even microaggressions that I would commit towards queer people unknowingly because I was so afraid,
Yeah.
So these tools, like, it deepened the ability to transform and start to embody who, I really am and continue to become.
What does denying our true selves do to the mind and body connection?
So it's really kind of fascinating, and maybe it shouldn't feel so surprising, but the disconnection between mind and body can have like really serious consequences. Sometimes people are just feeling unexplained physical pains and they don't really know why, or they're experiencing poor memory. They're unable to recall what they were going through, perhaps because they dissociated during an experience. It can lead to just a general state of dysregulation. So that can mean feeling highly anxious all the time, or quite low and lethargic most of the time, or fluctuating, unstable moods. So does that answer the question?
Yeah. And I find it really interesting because when I was so closeted, I don't have a lot lot from my first 20 years of life. It's very weird. Everything is very spotty. There are years of my life that are just missing. Wow. And now I find that I'm much more present. I'm much more just like grounded in here, and I can remember experiences and things. And I think I was just so shut off to who I was, and I was just moving through the world eyes closed. And when I came out, it really did. I mean, this is so like cliche, but it felt like a veil was lifted, and I could see and I could experience things and I could feel. Wow. And so I've firsthand experienced how that disconnection really is like a ripple effect on your whole life. I had eating disorders. I had all sorts of weird, things that just kind of were better when I finally started to listen.
Well, right. Because like, for example, my experience with eating disorders, for folks who do or don't understand, it's often not just about the food itself. It's usually, from my experience only, I will speak for, it was a coping mechanism to, monitor all of these other issues that felt like they were too much for me. And so once I was a little bit more embodied and I'd rebuilt that sense of safety, I didn't have as frantic of thoughts that I had to run off. I didn't experience as high, strung of emotions that I needed to cope with binge eating or whatever it was. And so some of that, like you said, it softens the intensity kind of naturally. But I'm also curious for you, did you start to learn, like when you shifted into more acceptance, did you start to feel in your body different environments or relationships that you were like, actually, this no longer fits, or this just doesn't seem aligned? Like, could you feel the difference? Did you notice it mentally? Like, how did you?
Yeah, I think I became a lot more protective of my space and of my time. I think I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of people who were in my life just because it was like, this environment doesn't make me feel good anymore. Yeah. So it was kind of an isolating experience at the same time, because it was like I was moving out of something and into something else. Yeah. But I was just much more in tune with kind of what I needed in all sorts of different ways.
That's really powerful that you were like, okay, I know I'm starting to feel in my own space and time what it's like to be fully online and fully myself. And so anything that doesn't like meet me there as, generally as we can on a random daily basis, like just no longer needs to be a part of where I spend my time. Like, I know not all of us always have the perfect choice either. We still have to go to workplaces or be in family environments or spaces that don't feel safe. But I think it's beautiful as you start to gather these little inner experiences of like, okay, I can always go back to that one time I did feel safe. And that becomes like a resource that you can visualize. It can be something that you do recall as a memory of safety and trust. And that can even help ground your body when you're in other situations that feel unsafe, but maybe you can't get out of. Yeah. So there's a lot of just interesting ways that once you start to listen and adjust, like the inner world and the outer world move with you.
Did you have that same experience?
Yeah. It took me a lot longer to realize that I didn't have to go into the most uncomfortable situations all the time. I think I had a little bit of the leftover no pain, no gain mentality of like, must conquer this skill of staying regulated even while everything is burning around me. Like, eventually, some people are like, you actually don't have to learn lessons only through pain. You could learn them through joy. You could learn them through peace. You could learn them through something that actually feels positive. And that like actually really opened my eyes. And that was this kind of a side note, but sometimes if my brain starts to overcomplicate things and I remind myself, okay, if you're aiming generally for like wholeness and well-being, typically if you're like, what should I do? What is the choice that's going to lead to joy? It's probably something that starts to feel closer to joy. Like joy begets joy.
Right.
Instead of being like, should I ruminate over this a little bit longer and then like write sad things about how I wish I was joyful? Or like maybe ask yourself what would feel joyful right now and like start to create permission to let some of that in. I know it's not always that simple, but sometimes for me, I do have to remind myself, like if you're going towards self-acceptance, the beautiful thing is you get to feel the benefits of small moments of self-acceptance every step of the way.
It sounds like you were deeply affected by the church. Is that? Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're all touched by it in a certain way.
Some more than others.
Did it grow up? Like, did you grow up with it in your household? Was it just around? Okay.
I'm the weirdo who chose it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That almost makes it worse because then you feel like, oh.
Yeah, you're speaking my language. No, okay, first, I again have to say, like, I'm not anti-God, anti-all-church, anti-faith, anti-spirituality at all. I just ended up choosing a particular sect and expression and congregation unknowingly that had quite a lot of ideas that I would now say with fresh eyes perhaps aren't necessarily the absolute truths that I thought they were and are more influenced by things like American nationalism, patriarchy, racism, colonialism, commercialism, a lot of isms. So that deconstruction really, I hope that everyone in their faith practice, like, take some time to listen, learn, go through these 7 steps and just get to know, like, how much of these beliefs are quote unquote eternal truths and or like reflections of the era that you were born into, the socioeconomic class, all of the other things that influence how we see things and perceive things. So yes, I was deeply affected, but in, retrospect, I joined the church because I'm a child of addicts, for one, or not everyone, but there are multiple people dealing with addiction within my childhood home. And there was also multiple kinds of abuse happening. And so that was chaotic. Then working in the industry, Hollywood was this big machine. And I was like, how am I going to survive this? You get rejected all day long, but then you're like being judged by people and and you just you're on this hamster wheel. So that felt chaotic. Then my own body as a kid is changing and I'm like, I don't, starting to go through puberty. And so I was looking for stability and something that was reliable and safe. And I had a neighbor who was so kind and her family had such a deep love and care for each other. And I was like, what is the glue holding you together? And for them, it was God, it was faith. And so I was like, sign me up. Like, I'd love to join for service. And because the only thing I knew how to do was like be obsessive about whatever I committed to, then it was like, all right, I'm going all in. And I'm grateful for the most part of the deeply contemplative practices, the learnings, there's a lot there that literally saved my life. I could have gone so many different directions. And as the story evolved, there were certain things that I felt needed to be unlearned, recalibrated, and expanded upon.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I think there's like, for some people, the church is like the most loving experience they've ever had. For others, the church is the most hateful experience they've ever had. And just trying to learn how to listen to everyone's firsthand experience and not deny them what they went through, but just to say like, yeah, we're all human. If you've felt unsafe, like let's first maybe apologize, understand why it felt that way, and like what can we do to actually help people feel loved, not just say that we love them.
Yeah. When did you finally feel that mind-body connection, and how did it intertwine with your coming out?
Yeah. So I had already been in therapy as well as treatment for a couple different kinds of eating disorders because, why pick one? Kidding. I'm like, please seek help if needed. Full support, pro recovery, self-deprecation. But I was out of treatment and starting to reconnect to my body. And that's when I found myself feeling attraction. I had never felt like visceral attraction to someone before. Of course, I thought my only options were guys. So I just thought, again, I was coming from the church. I thought, wow, must be like really pure and holy because nothing tempts me until she walked in the room. And so that was where it almost felt like, oh no, I just spent all this time learning how to feel again, but now my mind is telling me that these feelings are wrong. So should I trust my body or should I stop listening all over again? And that was like a weird gray area to be in for quite some time. Because you're like trying to seek truth and everyone gives you a different pamphlet on what truth is. And you're like, ah.
Yeah.
And then you have all of this information happening in here and you're going, can I believe you? Or are you trying to hurt me? Are you trying to help me? Do you know, do you have wisdom? Like,
yeah,
there's so much, for me, there was so much self-doubt and mistrust.
Where do you turn? Who do you trust? Yeah.
Right. And who am I to say if there's this whole group of people mirroring back to me that I'm bad, evil, wrong, unnatural? Who am I to say that I'm right and okay and all of you are wrong? Like it takes in that moment some audacity to dare to say, oh, this like maybe there's more to the story that this group in particular hasn't encountered. But it's so hard if you are that person who has to like stand alone in isolation and say, okay, I'm going to be okay with losing my community, maybe my family, and I don't even know where I'm going yet. Like, it's so tough. I wish we had a much more accepting and welcoming, just like general landscape to explore who we are. But I think it's getting better. Yeah, maybe. But I know for a lot of people, it's still like, it's so fraught.
Yeah, I grew up in Texas, so I grew up around a lot of those people, and it took getting out of that environment for me to be able to even listen to any of that. And I think I always knew. But it was one of those things where I couldn't connect to it because I'm not allowed to connect to it.
Right.
So,
and did you find when you finally encountered like queer community that it gave you a little bit more permission to like experiment, or did you feel like you had to just take the leap on your own and then you like encountered other queer people?
I think, I changed my apps. And that was like my slow way of doing it. And I met one person who was really kind of, who had been gay for a very long time. And so I think it was just seeing one person that was like, it gave me permission.
Yeah.
And then I got on the internet and started being like, hey, I'm gay, I'm 28, I don't know what the hell is going on, you know? And I started attracting other people who were like, yeah, I'm having the same experience. And that helped a lot. And then I think when I met Matilde and like an entire queer community, I was like, okay, now I'm like proud and I want to tell everybody about this. And it's like, you figured out the key. You're like, wait, guys, the answer to life is being gay.
For real. I'm like, everyone, please uncover your queerness.
Yes.
Like, liberation is available and it looks like a rainbow.
Yes.
I know. But then also sometimes I'm like, is that just because I'm queer? So this is what straight people have felt like when they're like, yeah, it all just feels right. I'm like, oh, imagine. Like, that's so nice that you all have just been chilling and coasting.
It's so easy for you. I love that.
And like going to the movies and seeing everyone who looks exactly like what you would do and how you would do it.
Yes.
Sorry, not overgeneralizing.
What other parts of yourself did you discover after finally coming out?
Ooh. Well, I shared a little bit about the particular faith congregation and some of the beliefs around being afraid of that being unnatural and evil and all of these negative judgments towards it. But I think there's also even some like more surface level challenges around just like gender identity and social norms and expectations, where there have just been so many things throughout my life. And I don't know that it's particularly my queerness or just my humanity that's like, I don't want to wear makeup in the way that you say to wear makeup. I don't want to, like today I'm wearing a skirt for the first time in 3 centuries.
It looks great.
Thanks. But like I have all of these other human experiences that I, for some reason, am nervous to express. I'm afraid to be seen in them. I don't know how other people are going to respond to it. And I think one of my experiences around showing my queerness was almost like, even though I had come out to some people, my self-expression was still closeted. And I'm not saying that like queerness it doesn't have to have a specific posture or manner of speech so much as I would have worn different things. I would have spoken about different topics. Different things mattered to me and other queer folks that weren't topics of conversation in my circles of, straight friends. And so it just felt kind of like I was still not letting myself be seen, and was just sort of nervous about what the response would be. I also was nervous that people would think I was just making it up. Like it was like illegitimate, like, is my queerness real? Is it a phase? As if any of us even have to perfectly know and decide that anyway. I'm like, I just wish I knew that there is more, like you deserve more space and freedom to explore all of who you are as a human being, all the expressions, all the ways you might want to dress or not dress, or makeup or no makeup. So yeah, I think I just found myself wanting to fit into a box because it would have been easier.
Yeah.
Like there just would have been less friction and even down, I don't know if you've experienced this, but like it took me so long to even learn what the term the male gaze was. I had never even heard of it until I read through some of the ways that might show up in someone's life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have unintentionally been operating around how I hope that a straight cis man will respond to me, not just romantically, but also like for employment and like just going out and ordering at a restaurant. And like also my self-worth was, well, does a straight cis man think that I'm beautiful? Or like everything was oriented around these standards and I didn't even realize it. So that's been like so liberating. But honestly, I don't know if I would have been able to do it if I didn't see other queer people living into their liberation. Like, I don't know that I would have felt brave enough to be the first to stand. So like on behalf of those of us who are a little more timid, like thank you to those in the queer community who are like loud, proud, and true to who they are, like from start to finish. That's how my partner is. I'm like, wow, if only I could have spared myself like 12 years.
But I think there's an extra layer here because you were on Disney and in the public eye.
That's valid.
I mean, I feel like a lot of that probably skewed your perception as well.
Yeah. I mean, I worked on a kids show, not with Disney, and it was a really positive experience. And then they learned that I was queer. And suddenly I was not brought back for the next season. And it was really interesting because it was almost like, and this is my perception, I don't know exactly what they were feeling, but it seemed like they were nervous that I was going to cause children to become queer. Like it was contagious.
Oh, it's very Florida.
But also like I didn't even that's not what the job was. That's not in the script. We're not even talking about matters of sexuality.
Right.
This is for like 3 to 6 year olds. And
Oh my
we're
gosh.
learning, I can't give away too much, but like we're learning different life skills. And that was a moment where on the one hand, I had a lot of people commenting on posts being like, you're just using your queerness to profit. And then in reality, I was like, actually, I'm losing jobs and I'm not like gaining popularity here.
Right.
Until many years down the road when people felt more comfortable to be like, you were my queer crush growing up. And I'm like, no one told me. Like, I didn't know that. But yeah, that was an interesting thing to feel like, wait, something that I think is one of the most beautiful aspects of who I am is like something that you want to fire and like you want to punish. And yeah, it was sad too, because we already had a relationship. And so it was like, what changed? Because I didn't change. I've always been me, but you learned something about me and it went through a certain filter that you have. And instead of being able to have a conversation about it and stay human with each other, it's like something got between and the decision was made and I was off the show.
Yeah. And that I feel like makes it even harder while you're going with this battle of who do I listen to,
Yeah.
myself or everybody on the outside.
I was down to listen to everyone besides myself.
Yeah.
That was me. Like whatever the opposite of self-trust is, self-betrayal, self-abandonment, self-loathing, like that was my wheelhouse. Self-trust, not so much.
Yeah.
Because also even, I don't know if anyone will relate to this, but if you've had experiences in certain congregations, not all, but some, the idea of the self is viewed in quite through a selfish lens. So anything that has to do with like, well, what do you want? It's like, no, it's not what I want. It's what God wants. Well, what do you desire? No. I don't trust my desires. I, aspire to align with these desires set for me in the word. Or so like the self itself is like something to be kind of avoided because it is interpreted through this egoic lens. Whereas I'm like, oh no, this is just simple biology. You're trying to learn like, do I need to take a deep breath because I'm anxious? Not like I'm obsessed with myself.
Right.
It's like just awareness for well-being.
Right.
So you can go out and live your best story. Yeah.
I know there's so much more to the ebook and to the platform Movement Genius. So for all of our listeners, Movement Genius and Alyson are giving everyone a free year, an entire year of a subscription to Movement Genius. That is such a valuable gift, and there's so much that you can learn and utilize to take care of yourself and your mental health. So please go check it out. Don't take this for granted. The code is MADEITOUT. We'll link it in the show notes. Let us know what you discover and what you learn from the platform. Hang out in the comments and let's chat about it. Thank you so much, Alyson. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And lastly, I want to know, what are you working on in therapy?
So I can't tell you what catalyzed this, but I'm going through like a deep reevaluation of whether I even wanted to get into the industry as a child or if it was kind of decided for me. My story has always been in my head that I've said in interviews for years is like, yeah, I chose this. And then we chose this because I wanted this. And I'm like, I was 3 years old when I was performing. I was 6 years old. 6-year-olds want a lot of things. And it doesn't mean that all just happens. So what were all the other factors that added to them? And it's been tough because once I pull that thread, there's a lot that comes into question. But it happened when my nephew reached the age that I was getting into the industry, and I realized, oh my gosh, like you're not even sure what you want to eat for dinner. Like, how did I ever think that I single-handedly held the responsibility. Not that anyone ever told me that, but I just believed that.
Sure.
And I've carried that. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
A can of worms.
It's so interesting what comes up when you're put in front of a kid that is like the age
Yes,
of
when
what
something
you are,
happened.
what you are reflecting on. It's like, whoa, hold on. Because in your mind, you're like, oh, I could handle that. I've always been able to handle it. I was mature, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Wow.
So now I'm like, no, you were a little baby.
Yeah.
And it's okay if that wasn't something that you wanted. Nope, we're not going to get those years back. A lot of beautiful things came from it, sure. A lot of challenging things came from it. Now, where do you want to go? And yeah, I'm just trying to create room for, again, I'm like very much in the process of the 7 steps of like, what does it mean to write something new and to actually dare to let something different happen? Because the world has had a story of all of us, right? Like your friends, your family, your teachers, all the people around you, like they know you for a thing. And sometimes we glue people to who we've known them as. And then, for example, you come out and they're like, but wait, you're not my little whatever thing that they wanted you to be anymore. Or you don't fit into the box of how I knew you. You've changed. And I'm trying to give myself that space to say, yeah, I might truly never be in the entertainment industry ever again. And like, that would be totally fine. Even though that's been the only map that I've had, that doesn't have to be the only map that I use.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I can't wait to see what
I say
you
that,
do.
but here we are on camera. I'm like, yeah, I'm not even going to be on camera.
I'm never going to do this again after this.
Yeah. Leaves and goes to another interview. It's okay. Works in progress.
We're healing.
We're healing.
You Haul, You Ghost. Either they're perfect, except for this maybe one little quirk.
Oh, okay.
Okay. When they go to bed, they have to listen to whale underwater noise.
Oh, U-Haul.
Yeah, you like that.
That sounds lovely. Like, also, is it at a frequency where maybe I can't hear it, but they can?
No.
I have earplugs. We can make that work.
How loud are whales? What is whale underwater music?
Maybe I was thinking of dolphins, and I don't know.
Dolphins is worse. That's like,
I'm not going to ghost someone for what they love to listen to. And also what like regulates their nervous system.
Fair. Dolphin noises would be tough for me.
Unless it's a certain album and you know what I'm talking about.
I do, okay. And we're on the same page. Okay, they've never voted.
Oh, you ghost. Because do we need an explanation?
Go vote.
Go vote.
Go vote.
This year, everyone. Yes. Fresh reminder.
Yes. Yes.
Ugh.
Okay, what about they text in all caps all the time?
Oh, I don't know if I could regulate myself because I would feel like you are yelling at me. Yes. No, sorry. Is there a middle between Hall and Ghost?
No.
All right, well, Casper it is.
I agree. Okay, they sleep with their 2 dogs, but they're 80-pound dogs.
Oh, that's okay.
You like that?
You mean you can... I happen to sleep like I'm in a coffin. So if there's only room at the corner of the bed, as long as I can be near my love, we can make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are the dogs really hot?
I mean, honestly, this was me. I had 2 boxers, and I used to sleep.
So you're seeing if we're compatible.
Yes.
Okay.
Most of the U-Haul You Ghosts are just what I do. I'm just checking to see if I'm normal.
You're like, is this something that would make you run away from me in case I'm trying to build a secure attachment? Like, would this sever it? Or I can't do this on the show.
So we're hauling.
We're hauling.
Love that.
Yeah, I hope everyone's okay with that. If you're open, you're open,
Yep.
Okay? What are you doing at 7? Also, I should have done my hair better if I was trying to go somewhere with this. Fresh out the shower.
Oh my God, I love it. I am such a fan of your podcast. You do talk about all of this, the industry and what has happened to you in the industry. Can you tell everybody where to find you and what else you're working on?
Yeah. Well, first I want to say that if y'all are like wanting to also find a community, we'll give you a discount code. Let's do MADEITOUT for Movement Genius, which is like you'll be able to join weekly classes with therapists and experts online. But there's also like all of these tools that you can just click to watch on your own time, 10-minute stress relief, anxiety relief techniques, things like that. So we'll make sure everyone gets the hookup. Please. It's like a small little cute, very queer community. I mean, everyone's invited, but like tends to be a little queer and would love to have you. And then the podcast is called Dear Hollywood and it's on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever else platforms exist, YouTube. And I have to give a shout out to my 3-person team, 2 other people who shot it really beautifully. Feels like a little cinematic expose on the industry. And yeah, it's available now. So you can just, and they're short episodes. So you can just like put it on 2x speed, learn, all about that concise learning.
Yes.
But also listen with care because it does get intense in places.
Do you have any final thoughts?
Oof. I haven't had enough water today.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you guys for being here another week and listening to another episode of Made It Out. Follow our guest at Alyson Stoner, follow Movement Genius at Movement Genius, and don't forget about your free trial, code Made It Out. The link is in the show notes. Follow me at Mal Glowinky. Follow the podcast at Made It Out Podcast. This episode was produced and edited by Matilda Jordan and worked on solely by lesbians.
A month to be queer. Yay! Pride is finally here. It should be all year.